And which of the three Fifty Shades films is Judi Dench's favorite? Did she tell you how she ranks them?
She liked she liked Freed because she just said she was happy it was over.
Now, not to say that every person's life and childhood is worthy of a film, but I'm curious if you look back at your own childhood, what genre of film is the Jamie Dornan adolescent story? Is it comedy? Is it horror? Is it an erotic thriller? What are we looking at?
Um, I think it's probably some kind of family comedy. It's probably my dad was a huge Steve Martin fan, and the only time we went to cinema trips as a family was to see exclusively to see Steve Martin movies. So in my head, it's like a sort of family drama with Steve Martin type vibe, like a parenthood type thing where I actually remember watching Parenthood a lot as a kid and going to see it in cinema. And one of the kids, I think I'm right in saying he was asthmatic, and I was asthmatic, and I still am asthmatic. And I remember sort of really identifying with him. And there's another kid who was really, he used to like put a bucket over his head and bash it against the wall and stuff. And I
Right.
think I had a bit of that sort of hyper in it. I was always very hyper as a kid, but well behaved, I think. But like I had a lot of energy. Still, I have a lot of energy, and I'm not good with being still. Um, so I think it was probably, yeah, I'm gonna say like a Steve Martin family comedy type vibe.
Tell us what you chose and why.
I chose Anchorman because I think if you really like tallied it up, it's probably the film I've seen most in my life. Which is saying something because it was probably, I was in my 20s when it was made. It was just at a particular time in London when I hadn't just moved to London, but I'd been in London a while, and but there was a particular time I put it on every day.
So I'm curious. Okay, so going back career wise, we're not going to detail every facet of the illustrious modeling career, but I'm curious. Once you segue out of modeling into acting, and I think Marie Antoinette was the debut, correct? Yeah. So hell of a debut, obviously, with Sophia Coppola. I'm just curious. Like, do you remember in those early years, like, were there good aspects of modeling, of technique, of knowing your own body, etc., that you could apply to acting, or was there more baggage you had to kind of like unlearn?
I think it's not like well, listen, I'll say this. It's not like I never acted. I did loads of drama at school. I used to do youth theatre back in Belfast. So it had been something that I had within me anyway, and experience of. I do think there's something really useful about being in front of any sort of camera. Um, Particularly, I feel, for film and television acting, a lot of it is a bit of a dance with the camera sometimes, and a movement. It's not a oh, if I move here to my this is my good side, I'm going to look better. But like it's almost the other way. It's almost like a comfortableness that you get from being in front of the camera, where it's not weird. Particularly close up stuff. Are usually often when you're doing photo shoots and the camera's right in your face, and it's actually just being comfortable with that
Right.
and not like seizing up and
Yes.
and it's weird technique like stuff like that is important because sometimes acting is a funny game. Actually, that understanding of a camera and being okay with something that is capturing you, I think is a help. But then
Yeah.
on the other side, you have the whole stigma attached to this guy got his photograph taken for a living, so he can't act. I feel like I battled more with that in the UK, and I think in the States, and the first time I came to LA, there it's more of a accepted pathway in than in UK where it's all about.
So I'm curious, as people probably know by now, I'm always fascinated by this, by the early friend groups and the groups that like end up succeeding. It seems like you were hanging out with like the every superhero that's now working. Basically, it's kind of insane.
Yeah,
I'm just curious, like in that group, give me a sense of the dynamic. This guy in the group is going to be the big
yeah,
star. Like, was there an internal kind of like acknowledgement of who was going to go where?
yeah. That was Garfield. Yeah, that was Garfield. We were always. I remember when I'll never forget that I met Andrew. I hadn't seen any of his work at that. We were very young, and I'm a year older than Garth. But it was I think it was probably I met Eddie 2005, and I met Garth I think later that year, maybe 2006. So I remember he came with this sort of tag of like, this guy's unbelievable, and he's going to really, make stuff happen, and instantly just a total goofball, accessible, slightly ridiculous person, and
Right.
but like an unbelievable talent. I mean, Garth and I have our own language. I mean, we genuinely talk to each other in a that if you're with us, and it's probably quite painful to be around. Um, I think James Corden realized that when we had us both on the show a couple of months ago. We just bring out all our silliness in each other, and I love it. Um, but I think he just seemed like the sure bet that was just going to make stuff happen and go on and do good things. As at this point, worked out for all of us, and
So, I joked about this. You've obviously you've had your billion-dollar franchise, but you haven't had your superhero role. Is there one that like you desperately wanted? Is there one audition that jumps out at you? You must have done a dozen superhero auditions, I gotta think.
I sort of haven't. I think almost. I think the only one I've actually auditioned for was Superman. That was way back when. That's when Henry Cavill got cast. Um, that's probably 12 years ago or something. More? You tell me. I don't know.
Did you get the suit on? Did you feel like you were actually in the running?
No, but I wore my own suit there. Was that a mistake?
You're under your little.
They were
That might have been a bad call, man.
Yeah, they were Superman pajamas. They weren't actually like an actual suit. Um, no, I remember, early audition for that. I got nowhere near putting the suit on. I never got deep into any audition process for any of them back in the day, and I feel like now, the last few ones, I wouldn't say there was a big audition process for, too many of, I'm too old now for Spider-Man. I remember I did a screen test for Uncharted years ago.
Oh, sure.
Years ago, when it was they were going to make it with different director and everything, and then and it went well. And there was a point where it looked like maybe I was doing it or whatever, and then it all went quiet, went away, and the director fell off and blah blah. And then when I heard they were going to make it again, I was like, "Oh, great!" And he said, "Oh no, you're far too old now." I wouldn't pin like one that I
Yeah.
prefer to do. If something came along, I'm interested in that world, but I'm also really happy where I am. And
Different respect, and I'm always fascinated by the reaction I get from different actors when I bring up the name Bond. Some of them clam up. Some of them are like, "I'm not going to say a fucking word to you." You must have daydreamed. You've been on those lists, whether it's real or not. It must be just flattering beyond.
yeah, I think it's flattering to be on a list, sure. But we're all on a list. We're all on the list. If you're a certain age, a certain type, whatever,
Yeah.
you're kind of on there. Whoever has a movie that people are talking about or TV show that people are talking about,
Right.
you're higher up that list. It's cool. It's something that I don't give any thought to
Yeah.
be honest.